Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading Corporation. You're tuned into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash, where we take a look at both domestic as well as international, let's say, activities or things that are taking place around the world and the effect or impact that not only is having or is going to have, but has been having on each and every one of us. And there's been, especially over the course of the last year, couple years, for sure, that there's been a ton of changes. There's been a ton of things that have just really taken a toll on each and every one of us, our savings, our investments, and even just our household finances. And as we talk about this today, I have my co-host with me, Chris Agelastos. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Dean.
Well, you're looking good, and let's get right into what we're going to talk about today. And this actually is kind of for those of you who've been subscribed to our podcast for a bit of time here, we've talked about this a bit where, we're what would happen, or is it ever going to happen, where we start finding more European nations that are jumping on board with BRICS. And for those of you who are not all that familiar, I should say, with BRICS currently, or what BRICS is all about, it's a global alliance. The pillar nations, you have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and they basically are looking to establish their own payment system. They're looking to open up various or different forms of commerce, meaning more specifically like less dollar centric. The term has been used very frequently, very often. De-dollarization. They want to break free from what they feel has been somewhat of a financial chokehold the U.S. has had on them for decades on end. And so, again, the question that we had was like, what happens if this really starts catching on with the European nations? And lo and behold, it's kind of starting to happen. I think I think England at one point Britain was talking about, getting themselves aligned. But this is where now Germany not only is kind of getting on board with it, Chris, but they're really, it's almost coming in and saying sorry. And
Yeah.
they say the title here, Alienating BRICS was wrong, says Germany,
hmm
promises course correction. And now they're in, as I look at this and like, okay, well, here we go. Maybe this is going to be the start of something where, again, these European nations jump on board. And what I also found interesting is this was done at a time that Germany was talking about this. Um, at the Munich Security Conference, and was reassessing its outlook on India and other BRICS members. And the reason that that stuck out is, as you know, there was kind of some of the media outlets, because not a lot of them covered what's going on with BRICS, but there was kind of like this, oh, wait a minute, maybe something good's happening here, when India just came to an agreement with President Trump in the U.S.
hmm
as it pertained to what they were doing with Russia and payments they were making in rubles and that type of thing, or receiving. But then all of a sudden, you have right at the forefront here, one of the selling points for Germany was it's transacting and what have you with India. So
hmm
India is still, again, right there in the forefront. And
Yeah.
bottom line is that they give, in this article, I'll let you kind of explain it a bit, Chris, but they give a lot of very sound and very logical reasons as to why they now realize they were wrong and why they're making this change going forward.
Yeah. They really, what they really point out here is that they have a lot more in common, specifically with India, and they were even talking about Brazil, another prominent member of BRICS. Than we don't have in common, and they still say that even though we have a lot of political challenges, maybe with the way Russia and China run things in their countries. It doesn't mean that we need to treat Brazil and India um, the same way, even though they're all involved in BRICS. And now maybe some of this, I do wonder, as you bring up, India. Working with President Trump a little bit more to get some more commerce going, if that maybe paved the way for Germany a little bit too, to say, okay, even the U.S. is talking more with India right now. But they brought up Brazil as well, which I thought was interesting. And then France, right at the same time all of this is going on, France even alluded to the same thing, saying that we really need to build some bridges instead of tearing down relationships in
Right.
talking about the BRICS alliance in general. So I think there certainly are some nations in Europe saying, "Look, we're neighbors. We're pretty close to some of these countries. We do have some things in common. We certainly do cross-border commerce and transactions, and maybe we need to start looking more for, or focusing more on the ways that we have similarities instead of harping on our differences."
Right.
And none of that is really good, I don't think, for the U.S. dollar, given that we already have so many other challenges right now with our own currency.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting too. You could look at this article and in and of itself just say, okay, so they're saying alienating BRICS and BRICS related nations, in this case, again, India, looking at that. All right, we're having second thoughts about that. And a person could look at this and just say, okay, no big deal.
Hmm.
They're gonna start dealing with these BRICS nations. What's the harm in that? Well, for those of you now tuned in, let's go to our next article. Here's the harm in it. So there's like, you could take that article and you could paint a picture, Chris, where it was relatively benign what
Sure.
Germany is doing. But then you have Deutsche Bank here. German bank says the US dollar has, quote, lost its exceptionalism. And this reeks of all that same de-dollarization talk that we've been hearing so much about over the last few years.
Hmm.
And as we get through this article and start going through, again, what does this mean? This loss of exceptionalism. One of the big things is that the dollar has, globally speaking, long been looked at as a safe haven, as a place
Hmm.
to be to protect your money and not have it so exposed. And now with the world, by way of Germany here, but there are other nations the same, is kind of waking up to the fact that it really isn't a safe haven as it was thought, as it's been thought to be all these years. And then they also couple it with the fact that the dollar has now turned riskier, excuse me, due to AI expenditure by tech titans. And so we know all this is going on, and so they're not only just saying, you know, that it's not just like a snide comment or remark against the dollar. How it's lost its
Yeah.
exceptionalism. They're actually giving a little bit of an explanation as to why it has lost that's a tough word to say, actually. It's exceptionalism. And the reason they give, or the rationale they're using, seems to me to be pretty sound, actually.
Yeah, and it's hard to ignore the fact that both of these articles come out around around the same time. There's definitely, I think, some connection there, and they point out, very plainly, like you mentioned, the U.S. dollar has for a long time been considered a safe haven. Now, maybe it wasn't actually as safe as people thought, or other nations considered it to be. However, they still relied on it heavily, and that was good for us. And now they're realizing that the U.S. dollar is not necessarily performing better than these other higher risk markets.
Right.
And foreign investors typically have gone, even individual investors and funds have gone to the dollar to protect themselves from exposure. And now those same investors are often hedging the dollar because of its exposure and higher risks than normal. And so they're really just looking at the data here, at least in this particular article, and saying that if U.S. equities suffer a little bit more, which a lot of people have been talking about, this AI boom, and how so much of our U.S. Economy has been invested in investing in the AI market, and they've been touting it as the next greatest thing. sort of like the dot-com boom, except, you and I remember the dot-com bust as well, when
Sure.
a lot of that hot air left the market. And so if AI does have a bit of a dip here, and that bubble pops a bit, and the U.S. is so heavily invested in it, that's going to make us even more risky compared to global markets. And so they're looking to reduce their exposure is sort of the bottom line. Whereas they used to run to the dollar for that safety, now they realize it's not what it once was, or what we once thought it was, and we need to cover ourselves here. And again, just another thing that does not go in the win column for the U.S. dollar.
Sure. Well, you wonder, has the horse already left the barn in terms of all the money that's gone into AI,
Hmm.
as well as like not just in terms of what the companies are placing there, but investors and whatnot, meaning that that capital expenditure is already gonna taken its toll, or it's already kind of taken root, if you will. Number one, and then number two, think of what it's done to the investment world, for those people we've seen now these pullbacks in some of these with these AI expenditures or investments,
Hmm.
and it may be too little too late. Only time will tell. But
Oh,
suffices to say, Germany has done an about face, if you will, and they're now looking at just kind of adding to the, and I don't think it's maliciously or intentionally adding to the U.S. woes. They're just recognizing it for what it is, and it's helping to build momentum the other way. So,
yeah.
thank you for that, Chris. And for those of
Yep.
you that are not subscribed to our podcast, please do so we can talk to you more in the future. If you'd like more information on BRICS or some of these things that have been changing, gold, silver, etc., we have all that for you. You can contact our office; it's free of charge. You can do that by calling or texting 1-800-289-2646, or you can visit us online at www.swissamerica, all one word.com. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to talking more in the future. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Take care.